Happy President's Day, everybody. And we're singing Hail to the Chief, to the president of Locked On Diamondbacks. We're doing a Locked On Diamondbacks, Locked On MLB crossover for this Monday. Let's get it going. Happy President's Day and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you don't believe me, there's my lower third. You can call me Sully. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer and a potential presidential candidate. Well, who would vote for me? I know someone would vote for me. That guy right over there, Miller Thomas, who's been the host of Locked On Diamondbacks for almost as long as I've been the host of Locked On MLB. Tell people about you.
Yeah, I'm actually the guy running against Sully in this race. Miller Thomas, host of Locked On Diamondbacks. You can follow me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for my personal account, or just look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle.
I'm hurt. You couldn't say vote Thomas Sully. I'll be your running mate.
Sullivan and Thomas sounds like a better lawyer group or something like that.
That's fun too. And by the way, you don't pay us unless you win. Okay, that's us. We're if you've been injured in an accident, call Thomas and Sullivan. Hey, follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter. And if you're playing Twister, and on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. If you're watching my beautiful face right now, then you're watching us on YouTube. So please subscribe and tell other people to follow us. We're dropping this on the 20th day of February, which is President's Day. I have it off. Hooray! I know way too many things about the presidents of the United States and also some of their connections with baseball. President James A. Garfield, who was sadly assassinated in his only year as the president, was a rabid Cincinnati Reds fan. In fact, there have been several Reds fans who have been the president because a bunch of our presidents came from Ohio, including William Howard Taft, who was best known for being a heavy fellow, but he was also a really smart man and in many ways a very good president. The only person to be the president and serve in the Supreme Court. Was a big Cincinnati Reds fan and also started the tradition of the president throwing out the first pitch because he was that big of a baseball fan. Obviously, you had George W. Bush, used to be the owner of the Texas Rangers, and there was a lot of people thinking he probably could have been the commissioner of baseball. And former President Ronald Reagan was at one point a announcer for the Cubs when they used to do things like they were reading the game off of a ticker. A lot of baseball connections over the years. Richard Nixon was a rabid baseball fan and would constantly write letters and get to other baseball players. And when he lived in New York, was a frequent visitor of Yankee Stadium. So a lot of baseball connections with the presidents. One of my favorite was Babe Ruth was not a very political guy, but he campaigned for Al Smith when he ran against, I believe Al Smith ran against Hoover. It was either Hoover or Coolidge. But when Hoover was the president and Babe Ruth was making more money than Hoover, someone asked Babe Ruth, don't you think it's a bad thing that you're making more money than the president of the United States? Of which he famously replied, why not? I had a better year than he did.
Now you look at it like every baseball player on every roster is making more.
Yep. So, and also, by the way, happy birthday to Justin Verlander. Justin Verlander, who came back from Tommy John surgery to win another Cy Young and another World Series ring, and then capped that off with being paid all the money in the world by the New York Mets, who are going for broke.
The big 4-0 for Verlander,
the big four bagel, and easy Hall of Famer, absolute easy Hall of Famer, and by all accounts, a good team. I've done not a lot of controversies you hear, following Justin Verlander around as he goes to the New York Mets. And look at that is obviously not a long-term deal. That's obviously a deal that say we're trying to win right now. And they're trying to make up for the loss of Jacob Degrom. Although, if the first reports out of Texas are any indication, Jacob Degrom is doing his best to make up for the loss of Jacob Degrom, because we didn't even reach President's Day before Jacob Degrom had his first little bit of an injury there.
Yeah, and right now, like on social media, there's a little beef and feud brewing between like Mets Twitter and Rangers Twitter because
Mm.
Mets Twitter is apparently all over Jacob Degrom anytime he gets hurt, and Rangers Twitter is feeling a little hurt by it right now.
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, you and I are going to talk a little bit about some of the best. Well, we had talked about some of the best moves. Where we talk about
Yeah,
some of the moves that we're going into this year. Look at this is all speculation, and sometimes there have been moves that teams make that I scratch my head and say, "What's that all about?" And it turned out to be they turn out to work. Okay, I was basically lighting candles at a church to keep the Red Sox from signing J.D. Drew before the 2007 season. I wanted
mm,
nothing to do with him. I thought his signing was awful, but he was a key part in that postseason. They don't win the World Series in 2007 without his big hits, and he had a fabulous year in 2008 where he almost slugged them back to the World Series. So sometimes I got to take a step back and say, all right, I was wrong. I was wrong.
mm.
That helped them win a World Series. But from right now, I was not a fan of the Jacob DeGrom signing with Texas, and I said it when it happened because the Rangers are trying to be a team that are trying to become relevant right now. Jacob DeGrom's always hurt. When
Yeah.
he's healthy, he is one of the best pitchers I've ever seen. But you're going to get 10 starts a year from him now. And now, are you going to even get that? So to give him any type of long-term deals, look at good for Jacob DeGrom. I never begrudge someone from getting a big contract, but I certainly don't blame the Mets, who I think are certainly going to get more starts out of Justin Verlander, who, mind you, missed all of the 2020 and 2021 season and is 40, but I think is more of a workhorse than Jacob DeGrom. And I think that for a team that is trying to push their chips to the center of the table, trying to get relevant now, I think this is I think, look I get they're trying to show that they're trying to win over their fans and everything like that, but it's a crowded AL West. It's not you have the two of the best teams in the American League are in that division. So you're basically going for like the second or third wild card position at best. And I don't think DeGrom's going to give him more than 11 starts this year. So I would put that as a signing that right now, as it happened, and now in spring training, I said this is going to turn out to be a bust.
Yeah, the long-term money I think is the thing that hurts the most when we look at the DeGrom contract because he's going to get paid until he's 40 years of age. I don't mind in terms of annual average salary because he's getting 37 million a year, which is a lot of money. But considering when he does start, how good he is, I think it's a gamble that the Rangers were willing to pay because if you look at their last two off seasons, they're pouring a whole bunch of money into these big time star players, the Corey Seagers, the Marcus Simeons, the Jacob DeGroms, and the Rangers are kind of going for it right now. I still think they need another year of adding players or probably adding talent to be a true World Series contender, but they've opened up this short little window where they're trying to attack a World Series, and they think Jacob DeGrom, if they could at least maybe don't get 30 starts from him in the regular season, but if your team's good enough to sneak into the wild card round, because we've seen from the playoff field the last 2 years, you don't have to be a 100-win team to make it to the World Series. You just got to get into the dance. And if Jacob DeGrom is at least healthy once you make to the postseason, then anything is possible if you're a Rangers fan.
I will never begrudge a team for not wanting to go for it. I will never begrudge a team for trying. Okay, that's why we were all begging for our teams to just try. But if you're having an off season where part of what you are doing is you say we're going to make our pitching staff better, and you bring in Degrom, you bring in Nathan Eovaldi.
Yes, sir.
Again, two pitchers who, when healthy, are wonderful, but they both have intense injury issues in their careers, and that was the previous decade. We're now in the mid 2020s. Okay, they're not getting younger. This is not a Benjamin Button situation. Okay, and unless we start to relax the PED rules, the ideas of someone who's injury plagued in their mid 30s, mid to late 30s, suddenly finding the fountain of youth. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Vasco da Gama, but that's not going to happen. And if you're building your rotation around that, look at uh, uh, a signing of a DeGrom would be perfect in a team like the Mets, like the Yankees, like the Dodgers, teams that have a frontline starting pitchers already, and you're hoping you roll the dice that he'll give you, get something out of the third, fourth, or fifth slot. The Rangers are asking them to carry the rotation, and it's not going to happen. In fact, I think it's one of the biggest surefire bets you can do is to say that they are going to put fewer than, that Degrom and Evaldi are going to combine for fewer than 20 starts this year. You know what? I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to head my butt over to FanDuel to make a bet like that. By the way, we're at the midway point of the NBA season, and it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can bet on anything from the money line to point scores, threes drained, and how quickly Jacob Degrom and Nathan Eovaldi are going to be on the injured list. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same-day parlay. That's French for speak. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet. That's English for no-sweat first bet. Up to $1,000 American dollars in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Did you not hear that? FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can go there to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. Now look at Miller Thomas. He's right there in case you're wondering. You and I want to talk a little bit about some of the moves that appear to be whiffs, and the Degrom Eovaldi signings, I think are front and center for me, because you're trying to make those foundational for a team to turn it around. And I love Bruce Bochy. I even love his lieutenants. But take a sip, take a shot, everyone, because I mentioned Bruce Bochy's lieutenants. But I see the Rangers as a fringe wild card at best, and I just don't. I thought this was a bad move. But what are some of the moves that you think of were ill-advised? Let's just call them ill-advised.
Yeah, and then real quick on the Rangers, they might not be done yet, Sully. They may have an in-season trade coming like the Seattle Mariners did with Luis Castillo. They pull off something akin to that where DeGrom's not carrying the rotation by him lonesome anymore, then you might be in on this. I'm in on you, Rangers. I'm in on you this year.
Do you think they're going to be above 500?
I just checked FanDuel. Their over-under for win totals is 81.5 wins this year. I'm not against betting 82 and 80 for the Texans.
I am.
Okay.
Under.
Okay, we should do like a little personal bet on the Rangers.
All right,
season.
Let's go do that.
But I want to start off when looking at the worst offseason signings. This is someone that I said was going to be a terrible signing before the offseason, just because I'm not in on him as a long-term option for your team. I think he's a good player. He's still young. He's still in his prime. But Dansby Swanson to the Chicago Cubs for 7 years, 177. Swanson's not a bad player, but I don't think he has the ceiling of some of these other top shortstops that we saw go off the market for similar money. Xander Bogaerts is getting the same annual average salary as a Dansby Swanson. Yes, there's a few more years tacked onto Bogaerts' contract, but just in a vacuum, I would much rather have Bogaerts than Dansby Swanson. Turner's getting $2 more million a year annually than a Dansby Swanson. I would much rather have Trey Turner than Dansby Swanson. Those two players, I think, are just a class better than Dansby Swanson, and you're getting them for basically the same rate. And I look at the Chicago Cubs team, I'm just not sure where they're headed as a franchise. They signed a whole bunch of players to one-year contracts, like the Cody Bellingers. I think they signed Trey Mancini's. Like, they took a bunch of flyer options. Then they spent a whole bunch of money on the Tyones, another bad contract I didn't like. Spent a whole bunch of money on Swanson. I know they had some momentum at the end of last season, but then they let their best player, Wilson Contreras, go in free agency to the St. Louis Cardinals. I just don't understand it from the Cubs' perspective.
Yeah, the Cubs are weird because a couple of years ago they were like, hell or high water, we're going to rebuild. And even though they were a playoff team for a good chunk of the beginning of the 2021 season, the nanosecond they had a slump, they traded everything that wasn't nailed down. And so.
And do you like that? Do you agree with that kind of situation of blowing up your team that you knew could at least made the playoffs? Maybe you weren't a World Series.
I'm not a fan of blowing a team up when they're still good. I understand in the mindset of trade someone a year too early than a year too late. And I think they should have kept maybe one or two players from the championship run, if for no other reason to give fans a little something to hang their hat on. It I prefer teams to go for it, especially because the National League Central wasn't exactly a powerhouse that year. I mean,
It's still
Milwaukee
not
was.
powerhouse.
I don't know what the Cubs are doing. On the one hand, like they're rebuilding, and the other hand, they're letting players walk. I understand bringing in a bunch of players to 1-year deals to basically be like, okay, you're on our squad, and if we're flowing down the toilet, maybe we can jettison these players and get some more young players back. But I don't see what their strategy is. And signing someone like Swanson, as opposed to Correa, if they signed Correa to a long-term deal, I would say, okay, this is the guy you're going to build the team around. Or
Yeah.
if they sign Swanson to a short-term deal, I can say, okay, they're just making sure there's a major leaguer there. But you're right, Contreras. We're going to cut costs with Contreras, but we're going to bring in Tyon to a longer-term deal than I think he's worth. And Swanson, I'm very confused by what the Cubs are doing, and keeping it in the city of Chicago. I think the White Sox have had as disastrous an offseason as you could possibly have. First of all, they lose the heart of their team. They lose Jose Abreu, who is the heart of their team, the franchise player, and the insanely likable slugger in the middle of that lineup, okay? You bring in Clevenger, who is an awful human being. Come at me if you want to fight me on that. And you're going to bring in not just his awfulness, but the media scrutiny that's going to come about from that as well, which is completely avoidable.
Mm-hmm.
And then you sign Andrew Benintendi to something long. Andrew Benintendi for 1 year, fine. Andrew Benintendi to a long-term deal, who has shown that he is not, he had a great start to his career, had a huge dip, had a good first half last year, then was a non-factor the second half. So he's given you half a good season in the last 3 years, and you're going to give him a long-term deal, hoping that he replaces some of the offense lost by Abreu?
Not just any,
and you bring in a rookie manager in the middle of this cyclone. This could be a potential catastrophic season for the White Sox, who just a year ago were the consensus pick to repeat as division champions.
And the funny thing is, it's not just a long-term contract with Benintendi. It's the largest free agent contract that they ever handed out in their franchise history.
Just Andrew Benintendi.
That actually just makes me laugh because it makes no sense. It's not even that big. Like $75 million is too much for Benintendi over 5 years, but just in terms of a vacuum, like just saying that's the largest contract you handed out, like that just means as a franchise you spend no money in the offseason. The largest contract you ever handed out is $75 million. Even the D-backs, who are always cheap, they gave Zach Greinke $200 million.
Yeah.
They gave Mad Bum $85 million a couple of years ago. $75 million is the largest contract in your free agent history. Is actually insane.
I'm going to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth. And I have to look this up here. So Benintendi, who wound up playing 33 games with the Yankees after being dealt from Kansas City, and was basically a non-factor. He was not a factor in last year's time with okay, here we go. No, that's Michael King. I didn't mean to click on Michael King. I meant to click on Andrew Benintendi. But Benintendi, who, by the way, it seems like Benintendi's been in the league a long time. He's only 28 years old.
Yeah.
Because he basically came right up from college. He went right from college to the 2016 Red Sox, played in the playoffs 3 straight years, had a great start to his career.
Wasn't he an all-star last year?
Yeah, he made the All-Star team because he had a very good first half of the season.
Yeah.
And he was on Kansas City.
Yeah, they had no one.
But like 2019, his numbers started to dip. The COVID season was a lost cause. 2021, his numbers were mediocre at best. And then last year, he started off really well, but then, of course, got hurt. I'm sorry. This is the guy you're offering? Like, you let Abreu walk and you bring in a rookie manager to deal with the loss of Abreu and the addition of Clevenger. I think if any franchise, and to the point now where, Cleveland and Minnesota are, in my opinion, clearly better than Chicago at this point. And also,
Mhm.
I mean, Johnny Cueto did well for them in their cameo. Why couldn't they bring him back? I look at I like the White Sox. I like a lot of the players on the White Sox. I'd like to see them do well, but this has just been, I think, a calamitous off season for the White Sox.
Yeah, it's a big make or break season with them because we've talked about a lot of times how their outfield is never able to stay healthy. Tim Anderson's never able to stay healthy, and he's going to be a free agent, I believe, at the end of this season as well. So I think it's going to be a big make or break season for the White Sox because there's someone that we've talked about as like a dark horse team, someone that we've all liked the last couple years to maybe go deep in the postseason ever since 2020 because we've looked at that lineup, we've looked at the rotation at times and thought they've been stacked, but they've never been able to do what we thought they were able to do once they've reached the postseason, never been able to exceed or at least meet expectations. So they've just kind of been disappointed the last 3 years. Big make or break season for them this year, and I'm not quite sure it's going to get much better. But Sully, let me give you another worse offseason signing because I feel like people don't want to acknowledge this guy as a bad offseason signing because of the team he re-signed with, because this team spends a lot of money, Sully, and people love it when teams spend money, but sometimes it's not always good to hand out the big time contracts because I think Brandon Nemo signing for 8 years, $20 million a year. Like, I think Brandon Nemo's a very good baseball player, but you look at his numbers overall, he's really just like a near 300 guy, maybe around 12 home runs, doesn't really put up big statistics. He gets on base a good amount of times, but it's like, he's like a borderline all-star type player. I think he got money, like he's a franchise moving needle player. I think he's a really good baseball player, but 8 years of over $20 million a year annually for Brandon Nemo. I know the New York Mets don't care about spending money. I know they're going to go out there and basically sign whoever they want, target whoever they want. We got a big summer coming with some more free agents that the Mets are probably going to be linked to and go after. But I think 8 years, over $100 million for Brandon Nemo, it's just kind of egregious. If it was a 5 year deal, I would feel differently, but he's going to be like late 30s at the end of that contract. I just feels like that's too much money for him.
I think it has to do a little bit of, this is kind of a weird organizational loyalty. Like, he is someone who came up through their system. He's someone who was developed through their system. He was
Homegrown
someone
guy.
who they wanted to sort of keep him as like a Met, to have him be that Met who is, that the fans could say, yeah, he's been with us this whole time. Um, he has played 100 games twice in his career.
Yeah, this was the first time he's done it since 2018.
Yeah, and of course, you throw 2020 out the window. Obviously, everyone has to throw 2020 out the window. Yeah, he's a hard. I mean, look, he's a fine player, and I think he's a fine complementary player.
He's
Your
good.
point is, I think your point is taken, that if they offered him a 3 or 4 year deal, then I think that would probably be the smartest thing. The 8 year deal, even I did a double take saying, I understand that he has value in the franchise that may be difficult to quantify, and you want to have, maybe knowing, like, hey, the Alonsos and the Nimos and the guys who are part of the team and brought up, it's not just that, they're trying to have their answer to the homegrown core that the Yankees had for all those years. I get it. I get it. But at some point you got to say, yeah, that's um look at, he gives them a nice boost,
Hmm.
but it's not a franchise boost.
No.
It'd be sort of more like, what's something more pleasant than be a boost? Like a Built Bar.
Oh,
Now look at, if you're looking for a delicious treat that doesn't have all the fat or calories, then you've got to try a Built Bar. All right, now we've made it through Super Bowl Sunday. We made it through the Valentine's Day chocolates, the Easter chocolates coming right around the corner. All these temptations are around us. You want to eat healthier? You got to try Built. With Built, it's healthy. It's actually tasty. They're so delicious you won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What make Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these Built Bars taste like candy bars while maintaining amazing macros. It's even better, they're healthy. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. Now you don't have to wait to get the box delivered to you. For years, we talked about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com. Well, now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box cookies and cream, double chocolate, coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. Oh my goodness, I love those Built Bars. Let's sing that song. Built Bars, they're still good. Talking about some of the bad, of course, as I said before, we could all be proven wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going into the year, the ones who go, what the hell are you doing? Like, I don't know what the Cubs are doing.
No.
I don't know. And the White Sox seem to be rudderless. The Red Sox are rudderless in a different way. They seem to be obsessed with the 2018 Dodgers. And I said, why aren't you obsessed with the 2018 Red Sox?
Like the Dodgers are.
Like the Dodgers are. Yeah, they're more 2018 Red Sox on the Dodgers, more 2018 Dodgers on the Red Sox. Kenley Jansen's going to be a disaster in Boston. Mm-hmm. He had so many blown saves with the Dodgers that were forgiven. They're not going to forgive him in Boston. It's going to be a calamity. Justin Turner, all that, the long beard and all the goofiness is great when you're hitting the big home runs in the postseason, not when you're, pulling a Pablo Sandoval. I just don't see. The Red Sox are rudderless. But let's go to the Dodgers for a second.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I'm starting to lean towards the Padres for the division when I make my official picks is, first of all, the Giants, their offseason was just the prom and carry was just it was a disaster.
Miss
and it was just kind of like all these moments like you're on the verge of something great and nope. Oh, you're going to sign a great player and nope. And, you thought you're getting Judge and Correa. Instead, you get Conforto and Mitch Haniger. And you lose Carlos Rondon. I mean, this is a bad offseason. Don't blame the Giants for not trying, but you got to walk away with something a little more exciting than Michael Conforto and Mitch Haniger, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
But the
Manaya?
other, I don't see it.
Stripling?
Yeah, Stripling. Congratulations. But the other reason why, obviously, the Padres are going to have a full season of Soto. They're going to have back Tatis. They're bringing in Bogarts for a team that's already good. But then I look at the LA Dodgers, who let Trey Turner walk.
Yeah.
Let Justin Turner walk. Let Tyler Anderson walk. Let Andrew Heaney, Cody Bellinger, Craig Kimbrell, Tommy Kahnle. Who did they replace him with? Who was
JD?
JD Martinez, fine, but I'm looking around going like, it was like the music stopped, and you're like, what did you do to improve this team? And I honestly think that the Giants and the Dodgers are kind of like saying, after you, San Diego, are kind of like they're completely inert off-season has allowed San Diego, of all cities, to be the team that becomes the big boys in that division. And right now again, the Dodgers won 100 some odd games last year, 110 some odd games. Obviously, they're still a good team. Obviously, still a playoff team. But I'm looking at how San Diego addressed their needs and how Los Angeles is going in. Yeah, I know they have a ton of young players in their system. They have a fertile farm system. Maybe they're going to hand the car keys over to a lot of the young kids and hope that they all explode. And they could very well explode. They could wind up winning the World Series. But my God, they let a lot of the Trey Turner one is the one that makes me completely baffled. And when Trey Turner left, I thought, well, all right, maybe they'll sign Swanson to a 3-year deal, or they'll be in on Correa, or they'll be in on Bogarts. I thought Bogarts was heading to LA.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that none of that happened really makes me scratch my head at this whole offseason that they've had.
I'll tell you who they brought in to replace them. The freight train, baby, David Peralta, because he signed a 1-year deal with them. That probably won't really move the needle for the LA Dodgers.
No, Peralta's not a bad signing. He's a decent player, and he'll probably do his job. But I still look at this Dodger team and go like, wait a minute. This is a World Series or bust team. Shouldn't you have made one big splashy move? Especially here in LA, there's a lot of ill will. The Dodger fans were mad about what happened last year because they had that team won 114, whatever it was, games. This is on paper in terms of what they did in the field in the regular season, the greatest regular season they had of all time. They won one postseason game to a Padre team who they beat like a rented mule the entire year. I mean, that was just embarrassing for Dodger fans, and there did not seem to be any reaction to that.
Yeah, if you're the Dodgers, this is kind of your MO though. Like they're not really afraid to let talent walk in the offseason because if you look at their last few off seasons, like they've let, like you just said, the Trey Turners of the world, they let the Max Scherzers of the world walk in free agency. They let the Manny Machados of the world walk in free agency. Like the
But
Dodgers believe in their own system that their front office can go out there and either pick somebody from their minor leagues they could develop into a star, or they're just going to wait for the next Max Scherzer to become available on the market that they go trade for, and then you get Trey Turner thrown into that deal, or you wait till free agency and you sign a Freddie Freeman, or like you trade for the Mookie Betts in the offseason. Like the Dodgers are not afraid to let talent walk in the offseason because they always feel like another star is right around the corner.
well, for Andrew Friedman and Brandon Gomes and everyone in that front office, the pressure is on them because they're gambling. They're making a bet that their farm system is going to be producing stars. But you already know where to go if you want to make bets, so no reason to do that again.
I didn't know if we were doing that.
No, I'm not going to do that again. Well, look at that's. I mean, and the other team and the last team I'll mention, and just some, as I said, sometimes the bad moves are just the moves you don't make. Is the fact that, and I've mentioned this before, I'll mention it again. I don't understand how Baltimore could have a year where they get off the mat, they finally have a winning season, and you don't capitalize on that. I'm not saying going on a massive spending spree, but at least showing your fans, hey, we acknowledge things are going to be a little different now. And we're going to try to bring some actual major league talent onto this team. Besides James McCann, who, I mean, look at James McCann's a nice player, he's had a nice career, but he's not anything. He was available. He's a living human being. They put a mirror under his nose, they saw steam. Why Baltimore could not be in on some of these people, I don't understand it.
Yeah, Baltimore, they signed some veterans with the Kyle Gibsons, the Adam Frazier's, the Jesus Aguilars, but they didn't sign any big time stars. They didn't sign any above average major leaguers that would have really helped the rotation or the lineup in that way. But I think they just are at this point like the D-backs where they're not trying to take any opportunity away from those young guys. They were not afraid to add veterans to maybe fill some of the holes and weaknesses to just shape around the edge of the roster, but they don't want to bring in any real big time impact players right now because one, I don't think they really want to be good just yet. I don't think they are afraid of being in the lottery one more year and maybe getting a top pick because this is still a team that wants all those young players to develop, give as many opportunities to the Adley Rushmans, the Gunnar Hendersons of the world to fail. I'm sure they got other young players as well. They're going to wait for the Jackson Holidays in a couple years to come up and give him as many opportunities as well. So I think maybe 2 to 3 years from now, we'll see the D-backs and the Orioles make real moves in the offseason, not just sign the Evan Longorias of the world and actually go out there and sign real-time players, real-time at-bats, dudes that you consider maybe all-star level players in the offseason. But as it currently stands, because they don't feel like they're even in the mix for a World Series discussion, why go out there and spend real money on a big-time player that you're probably going to have to trade in a couple years anyway?
Well, we'll find out for sure how accurate we are. But I know one thing is accurate, that once a week you and I are going to get together and we're going to have ourselves fun doing a podcast. So Miller Thomas, tell people where they can listen to your terrific show.
Oh, we missed breaking news with the White Sox during the pod. They signed Elvis Andrus, Sully.
Oh, there you go. Well, then that changes everything. Then they're going to win.
Yeah.
There's going to be a parade in the South Side. That's actually not a bad move, especially because they're not sure what they're going to get out of Tim Anderson, but still.
Yeah, it's all right. Tim Anderson Insurance. Follow me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for my personal account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks on Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. Follow us on YouTube as well, Locked On Diamondbacks on there, and follow us wherever you stream your podcast.
You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Seeing the glass is half empty, and maybe we'll be wrong. With Miller Thomas, I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan, here on President's Day. Oh, I forgot to mention, I feel like I'm cheating someone out. Thanks for making us your first listen. Sorry there. Ooh, sorry, Lindsey Crosby. Thanks for making Locked On MLB your first listen. Make Locked On Diamondbacks your second listen. Make Locked On MLB Prospects your third listen with host Lindsey Crosby. He's a prospect encyclopedia. He's going deep in the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Getting the last live read in under the wire. This has been Locked On MLB for the 20th day of February 2023. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. That's Miller Thomas. Let's fist pump for the president.
Boom.